The courtroom was already tense before she even walked in. It always was on misdemeanor mornings. Too many lives squeezed into too little time. People sat shoulder to shoulder on hard wooden benches, eyes darting, fingers tapping, nerves humming. Some whispered prayers, some stared straight ahead, hollow-eyed. Others scrolled their phones like this was just another inconvenience before lunch. Then she entered. High heels, loud, deliberate, cut through the low murmur like punctuation marks. Each step echoed longer than necessary, as if the sound itself demanded attention. Her head was high, chin lifted, hair flawless, makeup sharp, outfit expensive enough to announce money without saying a word. She wasn't scared. She was irritated. The bailiff called her name and she rolled her eyes, just slightly, but enough for people nearby to notice. A subtle performance, a signal. This is beneath me. At the bench, Judge Frank Caprio watched quietly. He'd seen this posture thousands of times before. Not fear, not regret, but entitlement. She stood before him with arms loosely folded, weight shifted to one hip. Not disrespectful enough to be obvious, just confident enough to be loud without speaking. Caprio glanced at the file in front of him. Traffic violation, failure to appear, contempt add-on, missed court date twice, bench warrant issued, brought in that morning after being stopped on her way to work. She exhaled sharply when he looked up. "Good morning," Caprio said calmly. She didn't respond right away. Instead, she looked around the courtroom, at the walls, the seal, the people behind her, as if assessing the space, like someone touring a property they didn't intend to buy. Finally, she spoke. "Can we make this quick? I'm late." Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "I understand." Just, "I'm late." Caprio didn't flinch. He leaned back slightly, hands folded, eyes steady. "Late for what?" he asked. She shrugged. "Work, meetings, real responsibilities." A few people in the gallery shifted uncomfortably. Someone sucked their teeth quietly. The air changed. Caprio nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "Let's slow down instead." Her eyebrows tightened. "I don't see why we need to," she replied. "This is just a ticket. I already paid lawyers more than this courtroom probably sees in a week." There it was. The flex, money, status, superiority, laid gently on the bench like a calling card. Caprio glanced at the clerk, then back at her. "You missed court," he said. "Twice." She waved a manicured hand dismissively. "Because no one told me, and even if they did, that's not my fault. I don't sit around checking mail like some people." She gestured vaguely behind her, toward the benches. The room went quiet, dead quiet. Caprio felt it. He always did. That moment when arrogance stops being personal and starts being public. He leaned forward. "Do you know what this courtroom is?" he asked. She sighed. "A formality." "No," he said gently. "It's where consequences show up when people don't." Her jaw clenched. "I don't need a lecture," she snapped. "I know my rights." Caprio smiled. Not warmly, not coldly, but knowingly. "Everyone who walks in here thinks they do," he replied. She crossed her arms tighter. "I'm not like everyone else." That sentence hung in the air longer than anything else she'd said. Caprio paused. This was the moment, the fork in the road. He could have ended it quickly. Fine, dismissal, move on. He'd done it 1,000 times, but something about her tone, the way she reduced the room, the people, the process, told him she didn't just need a ruling, she needed reality. He tapped the file once. "Let's talk about who you are then," he said calmly. Her lips curled into a half smile. "Finally." She straightened the moment Judge Caprio said, "Let's talk about who you are." This was her territory now, or at least she believed it was. She adjusted her blazer, slow and deliberate, like someone stepping into a spotlight she thought she owned. The irritation in her face softened into something else. Confidence. The practiced kind. The kind learned in boardrooms, not courtrooms. "My name doesn't really matter," she said. "What matters is that I shouldn't even be here." Caprio didn't interrupt. She mistook that for permission. "I work in finance," she continued. "I manage portfolios bigger than this building. My time is expensive. So, I really don't understand why I'm being treated like someone who doesn't have options." A few heads turned in the gallery. Not impressed, curious, alert. Caprio nodded once, as if noting the weather. And yet, he said, you're standing here. She smirked. Because mistakes happen, and people like me fix them. Caprio opened the file again, flipping a page slowly. He let the paper speak before he did. You were cited for speeding, he said, 15 over. She waved it off. Everyone speeds. You failed to appear. I had meetings. You failed to appear again. No one called me. Caprio looked up. You changed your address and didn't notify the court. Her mouth opened, then closed. She recovered quickly. That's not my responsibility. I have people for that. There it was again. People, assistants, lawyers, fixers, buffers between her and consequence. Caprio leaned forward slightly. Do those people stand here for you? He asked. She laughed. Short, sharp. Look, Judge, she said, dropping her voice into something more familiar, more condescending. I'm sure you see a lot of cases, but this isn't that. I can have this handled by lunch. A few murmurs rippled through the benches. Someone shook their head. Someone else whispered, Unbelievable. Caprio didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. You think this courtroom is about efficiency, he said. It's not. It's about responsibility. She tilted her head. And you think I lack that? I think, he replied, you think money replaces it. Her smile faded, just a crack. She leaned in now, lowering her voice, trying a different angle. My attorney knows people downtown, she said. Very well. I'd hate for this to turn into something unnecessary. The threat was soft, polished, almost polite, but everyone heard it. Caprio closed the file. The sound echoed louder than her heels had earlier. Let me explain something to you, he said, very clearly. She waited, chin raised, arms crossed. In this courtroom, he continued, titles don't speak, bank accounts don't speak, connections don't speak. He paused. Only behavior does. Her jaw tightened. I'm not a criminal, she snapped. No, Caprio said evenly. You're something worse. The room froze. You're someone who believes the rules are for other people. A beat. That belief, he added, is why we're still talking. Her cheeks flushed, not red with shame, but with anger. This is ridiculous, she said. You're embarrassing yourself. Caprio looked at her for a long moment. Then he said quietly, No, you did that yourself when you walked in like this was a runway. A low ooh rippled through the benches before the bailiff silenced it. She took a breath, clearly trying to regain control. Fine, she said. What do you want? A fine? I'll pay it. Double it. Triple it. Just stop wasting my time. Caprio nodded slowly. All right, he said. Let's talk about wasting time. He turned to the clerk. Read the bench warrant. Her eyes widened slightly. The clerk began reading. Date, time, failure to appear, failure to respond, court resources expended, officer time used. Each line chipped away at her posture. Caprio looked back at her. Do you know how many people sat here today who wanted to show up on time but couldn't? He asked. Single parents, hourly workers, people who begged their bosses for a day off. She rolled her eyes. That's not my problem. Caprio nodded. And now, he said, it is. Her confidence didn't disappear all at once. It cracked, a hairline fracture, almost invisible at first, but once it started, it couldn't be stopped. She shifted her weight again, heels clicking softly this time, not sharp like before. Her arms loosened, then crossed again, as if she couldn't decide which version of herself belonged in this room. I think this is getting blown out of proportion, she said. Her voice was steadier than she felt. We're talking about a traffic issue, not a moral failure. Caprio didn't respond immediately. Silence was one of his tools. He used it the way surgeons use scalpels, precisely. Let's look at the pattern, he said finally. He slid the file closer to himself and turned it so she could see the pages stacked inside. Not thick, but thicker than she expected. This isn't your first missed appearance, he said. Her eyes flicked to the file, then away. And it's not your second. She scoffed. That's impossible. Caprio raised an eyebrow. Is it? He asked calmly. He nodded to the clerk. Please read the prior notices. The clerk's voice was neutral, almost bored, but the words landed heavy. Dates, citations, continuances, warnings, each one confirmed with certified mail, signed for, her signature. The gallery leaned forward now. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was exposure. She swallowed. That doesn't mean I read them, she said quickly. Like I said, I have staff. Caprio folded his hands. You delegated attention, he said, not accountability. She exhaled sharply, frustration leaking through. You're acting like I committed some kind of crime. I'm acting like you ignored the court, Caprio replied. Repeatedly. Her voice rose. I didn't ignore you. I ignored paperwork. Caprio looked at her, expression unchanged. In this building, he said, paperwork is how respect shows up. A murmur ran through the benches. Not approval, recognition. She leaned forward now, palms pressing lightly against the bench. Let me be clear, she said. I donate more in a year than most people here make. I fund programs, scholarships. I do good. Caprio nodded once. That's commendable, he said. Relief flickered across her face, brief, premature. But charity doesn't cancel conduct, he continued, and generosity doesn't grant immunity. Her mouth tightened. This feels personal, she said. Caprio shook his head. No, he replied. This feels unfamiliar to you. She bristled. What's that supposed to mean? It means, he said evenly, you're used to rooms where people nod, where they accommodate, where they don't push back. He leaned forward slightly. This room doesn't do that. Her composure slipped further. So what? She snapped. You're going to teach me a lesson? Caprio paused. I'm not here to teach, he said. I'm here to apply the law. She laughed, once, but it sounded thin. You really think you can humble me over a speeding ticket? Caprio looked down at the file again. No, he said softly. I think you already humbled yourself by assuming you were untouchable. That one landed. Her shoulders stiffened. The color in her face deepened. Not anger now, but something closer to embarrassment. She glanced around the room. No allies, no impressed faces, just strangers watching someone lose control she never thought she'd need. She straightened again, desperation creeping into her tone. Judge, I can fix this. I'll pay whatever fine you want. I'll take a class. I'll even apologize if that's what this is about. Caprio looked up. This isn't about an apology, he said. Then what do you want? She demanded. Caprio held her gaze. I want you to understand, he said, that respect isn't negotiated at the bench. A long pause followed. Then he added quietly but firmly, and neither are consequences. Her lips parted. For the first time since she walked in, she didn't have a response ready. The silence stretched longer than she expected. She stood there waiting, bracing for a fine, a warning, maybe a stern speech she could later dismiss as an inconvenience. That's how these things usually ended for people like her. A transactional close, a receipt, an exit. But Judge Caprio didn't speak. He looked at her the way people do when they're deciding whether someone deserves one last chance to understand themselves. She shifted again. Are we done? She asked, irritation creeping back in, forced and brittle. Caprio turned a page in the file. No, he said. Now we're getting to the part you've been avoiding. Her stomach tightened. He raised his eyes. Do you remember what you said to the officer when you were stopped? She blinked. That's irrelevant. Caprio nodded to the clerk. Read the officer's notes. The clerk cleared her throat. Defendant stated, Do you know who I am? Followed by, I don't have time for this, and just write whatever you need to write. A ripple of reaction moved through the gallery, not laughter, not shock, recognition. The kind that says, I've heard that tone before. Her face flushed hard now. That officer exaggerated, she snapped. Caprio didn't argue. He simply asked, Did you say it? She hesitated. That hesitation told the room everything. I was frustrated, she said finally. Anyone would be. Caprio leaned forward slightly. Frustration explains tone, he said. It doesn't excuse behavior. She clenched her jaw. You're twisting this. No, he replied calmly. I'm reflecting it. She frowned. What does that mean? It means, he said, You've spent this entire morning telling us who you aren't. Not like everyone else, not irresponsible, not someone who ignores rules." He gestured lightly toward her. "But your own words keep introducing someone different." Her voice dropped. "You don't know me." Caprio nodded. "That's true," he said. "But I know patterns." He tapped the file once. "And patterns don't lie." She laughed again, short, sharp, but there was no confidence in it this time. "So what, Judge? You're profiling me now?" Caprio shook his head. "No," he said. "I'm listening to you." That stopped her. She stared at him, searching for sarcasm. There was none. "I listened when you said your time was more valuable," he continued. "When you said this court was a formality. When you said other people's struggles weren't your problem." Each sentence felt like a weight added to her shoulders. "And now," he said, "I'm listening to the silence." Her hands trembled slightly. She noticed and clasped them together. "This is unfair," she muttered. Caprio's voice softened, not in sympathy, but in precision. "Unfair is when someone with no resources misses court because their bus breaks down," he said. "Unfair is when someone loses a day's pay to sit on that bench." He glanced briefly toward the gallery. "You didn't miss court because you couldn't," he added. "You missed it because you didn't think you had to." Her eyes dropped, just for a second, but Caprio saw it. He continued. "You came in today expecting this to end on your terms," he said. "But court doesn't work that way." She swallowed. "So what happens now?" she asked quietly. Caprio sat back. "Now," he said, "we address the disrespect, not with anger, but with accountability." Her head snapped up. "You're going to punish me." "I'm going to correct you," he replied. The distinction mattered. She took a slow breath, trying to steady herself. "Judge," she said, voice lower, more controlled, "I didn't mean to come off the way I did." Caprio held her gaze. "That," he said, "is the first honest thing you've said today." Her eyes widened slightly. He continued before she could respond. "But honesty after exposure," he added, "isn't the same as accountability before consequence." The room felt heavier now, not hostile, not angry, inevitable. She nodded faintly. "I understand," she said, though it was clear she didn't fully. Caprio looked down at the file one last time, then he closed it, slowly, deliberately, and when he looked back up, his voice carried the weight of finality. "Stand still," he said. Her breath caught. "Yes, Your Honor." She stood perfectly still, not because she was told to, but because her body finally understood what her ego hadn't yet caught up to. Judge Caprio didn't rush. He never did. Rush justice felt careless, and careless justice bred resentment. He took his time, adjusting the papers in front of him, even though the decision was already made. This wasn't about paperwork anymore. It was about impact. "You missed court twice," he said. "You dismissed the process. You disrespected the people in this room, directly and indirectly." She nodded faintly, eyes fixed straight ahead. "For that," he continued, "there are consequences." Her fingers tightened together. The gallery leaned in without realizing it. "I could fine you heavily," Caprio said. "I could issue additional penalties. I could make this expensive." Her lips pressed together, bracing. "But money," he added, "would teach you nothing." Her eyes flicked up, confused. Caprio looked directly at her now. "So instead," he said, "I'm going to cost you something you value more." The silence sharpened. "I'm ordering you to complete 40 hours of court observation," he said. "Not in a suit, not with assistants, not with a phone." Her breath caught. "You will sit in this courtroom," he continued, "and you will watch cases from open to close. You will listen." Her face tightened. "This is absurd," she said reflexively, then stopped herself. Caprio didn't react. "You will watch people who are scared," he said. "People who are late because they had no choice. People who don't have lawyers, staff, or influence." He leaned forward slightly. "You will watch people who show up anyway." The room was silent. "And," he added, "you will write a reflection, 10 pages, on what you observed. Not about fairness, not about efficiency." He paused. About humility. Her eyes widened. This is This is humiliating, she said quietly. Caprio nodded once. Yes, he said. That's the point. She swallowed hard. You want to embarrass me. No, he replied. I want to introduce you to perspective. Her shoulders slumped, not dramatically, but noticeably. The posture she walked in with was gone. No tilt, no swagger, just weight. And if you fail to complete this, Caprio continued calmly, you will return here, and then we will talk about fines. She nodded slowly. Yes, Your Honor. Caprio studied her for a moment longer. This court isn't here to crush people, he said. It's here to correct course. He paused. You walked in thinking you were above this room, he added. You're leaving understanding you're part of it. Her eyes glistened, not with tears but with something unfamiliar, recognition. You're dismissed, Caprio said. She didn't move at first, then she turned, and as she walked back past the benches, something unexpected happened. No one stared, no whispers, no judgment, just quiet. That somehow felt heavier than anything else. She came back 3 weeks later. Same courtroom, same benches, same seal on the wall, but nothing else was the same. There were no heels announcing her arrival this time. She wore flat shoes, simple clothes, hair pulled back without effort or intention, no blazer, no armor. She entered quietly and sat where she was told. No eye rolling, no scanning the room, no entitlement disguised as confidence. She waited. Judge Caprio noticed her the moment she walked in. He always did. When her name was called, she stood immediately. Good morning, he said. Good morning, Your Honor, she replied. Her voice was steady, but different. Lower, grounded. Caprio nodded. Did you complete the court observation? Yes, she said. All 40 hours. And the reflection? She handed the pages to the clerk with both hands. Caprio didn't read them right away. Instead, he looked at her. What did you learn? He asked. She hesitated, not because she didn't know, but because she wanted to answer honestly. I learned, she said slowly, that I wasn't special. I was just insulated. The room went still. I watched people who were scared but respectful, she continued. People who showed up even when it cost them more than it cost me. She swallowed. I watched a man apologize for being late because his kid was sick. I watched a woman cry because she didn't understand the paperwork but was too embarrassed to ask. Her voice tightened, and I realized I didn't ignore this court because I was busy. She looked up. I ignored it because I thought it didn't apply to me. Caprio held her gaze. What does it apply to now? He asked. She didn't hesitate this time. Everyone, she said, including me. Caprio nodded once. That was all. He glanced briefly at the reflection, then closed it without reading further. I don't need to read this, he said. She blinked. Why not? She asked quietly. Because, he replied, your posture already told me the ending. A faint, nervous smile touched her face, then disappeared. Caprio leaned back. Case dismissed, he said. She exhaled, relief washing over her, but it wasn't the loud, triumphant relief she might have expected weeks ago. It was quiet, contained. As she turned to leave, Caprio added one final line. Remember, he said, the law doesn't exist to remind you who's powerful. She paused. It exists, he finished, to remind you who isn't. She nodded once. Yes, Your Honor. And when she walked out this time, there were no echoes, just footsteps, even, measured, human.